Hello there. Welcome back to Charles Circle, and welcome back to Captain of Industry. Last time, we finally built our oil refinery, where we process oil that we import from the world map into diesel and a few other byproducts along the way. Just in the nick of time, too, because this brown patch of earth is the only sign that remains of our starter oil patch. It evaporated as we were constructing still. So we managed to stick that landing, and we're all very happy about it. But that doomsday clock dominated our thinking for the last couple of episodes out of necessity. But now that we are finally on the other side of that transition, we can open back up a little bit and decide where we want to go next. And where do we want to go next? Glass. Why glass? Well, glass is the last thing standing between us and trains. Trains are the big highlight of Update 3, and they'll be hugely helpful to us in bringing raw materials from all over our island into our processing areas. The mines that we currently use are kind of far to be bringing 20 resources at a time via truckload. But here's the thing, that's only going to get worse and further as we slowly but surely chip away through these starting deposits. For example, this iron mine, as you can see here, has had a pretty good chunk taken out of it. There's still enough left. We're not stressing about it yet. But we're making progress, and similarly to the pace that we blew through the last half of our oil patch, you know, our pace of consumption of these things only accelerates over time, right? So something we want to have the tech to deal with by the time we need to, for example, come out here to this iron patch, let alone this iron patch. So plenty of resources, but they are further and further away for us to get. Trains are going to be super important for us to navigate that. They are the sort of thing where there's a pretty significant initial investment, right? You have to get it up off the ground, building a whole bunch of, train depots so you can build trains, stations, here in the drop-off area, let alone out of the mines, and a million miles of tracks connecting it all. But once that's in place, it makes logistics for every new mine or factory super easy, since we just need to add one more station and train to the system. They're also super efficient to operate from a fuel and maintenance perspective compared to trucks. So the more of them, the more that we can have them running our sort of large volume, long distance, transit, the more our trucks can focus on the smaller last mile, drop off type of deliveries, that longer tail of smaller operations that our base also still requires to keep things running smoothly. But trains are made out of vehicle parts 2, and vehicle parts 2 require, vehicle parts 1 and steel, which we already make both of, but also glass. So, glass is the only thing standing in our way. So the first thing to do, of course, to build glass is to research glass. So I'm going to queue that up, along with a couple other odds and ends that we will research along the way. Let's see, grab these, and then finally, trains. Okay. So I will unpause here and let that start to go. But there's a few other odds and ends that I want to address here while that's researching, things that sort of piled up while we were understandably focused over here on our refinery. So we've got our research going again, full speed. That was part of it. The other thing that we'll want to do is, there's a few things actually specifically at the refinery. The first is, I got all excited about the fact that we can run our cargo ship on heavy oil. That's true. What I did not do is press the last button, which actually finally changes over from diesel to heavy oil. So now that should actually run on heavy oil. Important box to check. The other thing I want to do is that was still able to function in the meanwhile, which is great, but it was only able to function in the meanwhile because we had trucks delivering diesel by hand. We don't need any hand deliveries here anymore because we have it directly connected to our output of heavy oil. So we would like to simplify that as well. Okay. The other thing we need to do, and actually relatively quickly, this is where we were making our rubber. Obviously, this is not ideal in the longer run because we are manually bringing diesel over here. Actually, this is just the amount of diesel that got auto pushed here when we cleared out the tank, because as you can see, it actually does have import disabled. But the point is, this is one, not where we want to be doing this, and two, kind of going to run out pretty soon. This is all the storage we have here, other than, of course, this nice full storage 2 of rubber, the only place we actually consume it. So that's fine, but we need to take care of it. So I mentioned last time, I'd like to have this over here because, and I'll place it just for a moment. Oh, that's right. We're untoggling planning mode last time because it's hard to see, but for one building, we'll live. We need rubber, of course. We want to make it out of this sulfur plus diesel recipe because it's a little bit more efficient and doesn't generate wastewater, right? Nice and tight. So I think we're going to straight up disable this one and only run this from sulfur. This may cause us some troubles. I'll come back to tree harvesting in a moment. This may cause us some troubles. I was doing a little bit of mental math on our sulfur generation, and we're using it here, and we're going to use it for acid production here in a little bit, and then also rubber, and it's going to be, I think, in a little bit short supply. But I do think that rubber is the sort of thing that we want to give priority to, because I just really don't want to have to deal with bringing coal over here as a backup and, dumping the wastewater and everything. So I think we are going to at least try to set this up in such a way that we prioritize the sulfur here and have backups elsewhere, which will come into play when we get to the sort of the acid production later in this episode. So let me quickly add some trees to the harvester's plate. I think we will... Actually, I'm going to start moving over here after we do this strip. We have trees left, but not forever. And the next patch of trees is up here, which means we're going to have to terraform, build a ramp. So I'm going to clear a little bit of space here just to prepare for that. You'd rather have it ready too early than too late. And our terraforming crew is clipping along, so they're going to run out of stuff to do here anyway. All right, back to it. How do we want to set this up? Okay, so let's start with the sulfur. I think we will, over here probably, add a balancer. So let's clear that out real quick. Add ourselves a balancer here. There we go. And say priority. Actually, I'll probably structure it like this. Priority here. We do need to still run in the meanwhile, so let's build it. And I think 2 rubber makers is going to be fine for quite some time. I don't want to have to stress about making this future-proof to the absolute max, but I think this will be fine for now. Maybe the right thing to do is to maybe build it like this. Yeah, I think that's right. And if we need to, we can keep this blueprinted for quite some time. I don't think we'll need more than a second rubber maker for a very long time indeed. So let's rearrange this instead. Come through like this. Oh, that's right. This is the bane of my existence, right? These little connectors cannot be directly next to another connector. So if I want symmetry here, I basically have to bring in a second pipe, belt. That's what that word is. I will deal with that later. This is not a big deal. So that's our sulfur. Now we need diesel. Now, how do we want to think about diesel priority or rubber? I would probably argue that diesel supply to the rest of the base, i.e. the ability for our trucks to keep operating, is more important than rubber. So I think we have to set up a balancer that reflects that. Now where? Because I didn't exactly leave myself a ton of room here. I suppose the other thing we could do would be a pipe coming directly out of this storage, but only outputting if we're above 300 or so. Maybe that's the right way to do this. Let's sketch it out and see what that looks like. Does this need to be a pipe 1 or a 2? Yeah, I mean, 12 at a time times 4, even if it would take all 4 of those on and overclocked for a pipe 2 to be necessary, so we'll upgrade that if and when we ever get to needing that. The other thing this solves, compared to trying to find the right spot for a balancer in the refinery here somewhere, is that we only meet up both branches of the refinery sort of diesel outputs, as it were, at the at the very end, right? Like this half of the refinery comes in here, this half here, so we'd have to put 2 balancers and think about how we want to relatively prioritize each half. It's ridiculous. So this is much simpler if we can make it work. Let's try to keep it nice and tidy under the water pipe, because it's, incredibly important, but because it's tidy organizationally. And that, I would argue, is actually important. All right, let's bring it... Let's just bring it directly over the belt, I suppose, right? To here. Is that the way to do this? No. To here. Even. Is that the way to do this? Perhaps not. To here. I'll show you why in a moment. Again, with the funny mechanics here, in order to have multiple connect up, right, they have to be at the same height, right? That has to be flat. And so what I actually need to do here is more or less artificially create this connector. That'll work just fine. Why do we have this extra row? We probably just don't need this. Yeah. I was working around an entirely unnecessary constraint I put on myself. Great. Okay. Does that, in fact, make our belt connections any easier? Sure, because what we're going to do is this, right? This is the... and this. Finally, it's symmetrical. There we go. Man. Important stuff, important stuff. Okay. But we need one of these rubber makers immediately. So let's do all of that. And just double checking again, our priority here is to rubber. Rubber, if we don't have rubber, we can't make electronics, which means a lot of things are screwed up downstream. If we don't have sulfur here, we just don't make as much fertilizer, and we don't have a food problem right now. If we ever do in the future, we can always reprioritize, rebalance. And the other question is, we're still able to reach this sulfur, right? This is a nice little overlay that I really wish was actually more easily accessible. This green shows you where trucks are capable of driving, and they are, in fact, capable of driving in here. What we may do in the longer run is create a larger sulfur storage out here that's like downstream of all of this stuff and say that trucks can only come get from there. We'll figure it out, but I'm not worried about it in the short term. Good. Waiting for products? What are you still missing? Yep, of course, I've missed some diesel, but what, why are you not getting sulfur? Do you not have this? Why is this not connected? That's not required, is it? Is that required in order to make this? Very interesting. I do not know what to make of that. It says it has sulfur in the connector. Weird thing to get caught up on here, but of course this is necessary. So I guess I'll just delete and rebuild. I'm sure something's happening here that I should be aware of, but I'm not. But I'm not. So let's try again. So if this works, then I suppose we add this back in. Okay. Tell me that doesn't break. Fascinating. I got nothing, folks. Delete and rebuild. I suppose that's the answer. Speaking of deleting and rebuilding, though, that means all of this, including this, and this. Beautiful. Man, clearing space. That is a dopamine hit. We'll take it. Okay, so that is rubber transitioned over. The other thing I'm thinking is I want to at least just blueprint real quick the organic fertilizer mixer. So as a reminder, right, we can optionally add organic fertilizer in here to sort of dilute out the input requirements for fertilizer 1. These are basically waste resources plus water. So why wouldn't we do that? So we don't have the recipe yet, obviously, so we can't exactly make it, but I do want to, just for our own purposes, remember that we need to leave a little bit of space for that, which is water, dirt, and compost. Cool. This will get arranged, but I just want to remember that we have to add another module here somewhere, and in fact, maybe it's even better over here. We'll see. Okay, but we unlocked more refugees, and we still have some terraforming to do here, but we are cruising, which is fantastic. In fact, they're getting through this so fast, I'm going to give them more than just that to work on. And I'm starting to think we're running out of shoreline that I'm certain I want to build all the way up. But we want to connect to this island eventually. Remember, big old oil deposit there. Plus, that's limestone, I think. That's quartz, which we can turn into sand, and then obviously that's actual sand. So this island will be helpful for us in the longer run. It's not something we have to prioritize, but if we have to dump somewhere anyway, why not? Let's start extending the coastline out that way. Which will mean, of course, that we need to... Well, we actually don't have to do this. A dumping area can be outside of the operating zone, but they will prioritize accordingly. So, great. Okay, what did we just unlock? We just unlocked salt, right? So salt is the first part that we're gonna need to put together for glass mix, all right? So we'll get a little bit closer in because there's a fun little sort of recycling loop. But the first thing you need to know is a glass maker in a blast furnace, which we've already used, right, for copper and iron, requires this glass mix and some coal to make molten glass, and then we cool it into glass. So how do you make glass mix? Sand, we have. Limestone, we have. Salt, we do not have. Acid, we can optionally use. We do not have, but we could soon have. So let's get salt going, and then we'll talk about where we want to make that glass mix. But salt is something that we can make out of this brine, right? So we pull seawater, which has salt in it, up out of the ocean at our desalination station, and it spits out fresh water, which is great, that's what we want. But of course then it concentrates out the salt that was in this fraction into this fraction. Now we have brine, which is basically just like super salty water, right? Well, I bet we could evaporate the water out of that super salty water and make ourselves some pure salt. And that's exactly what we do. So currently we're dumping it into the ocean. We probably won't consume all the salt, but we can, rather than dumping it, turn something from a waste product into something we can actually use. Nice, right? So I'm going to start by just placing this one. We can also place one over here, but we're only operating on this side yet, and I think this is probably going to be enough. We also still need to be able to dump when there's leftover, right? But we are going to... Actually, is that the two that I want to do? I don't think that it is. I think it's this one and this one. Okay. We need to, as always, get ourselves a nice little balancer here to prioritize our outputs and say, please do try as best you can to send it all over here. It takes 96 a minute, so this actually should be, now that I think about it, a pipe 2 as well. In fact, maybe we won't be maxing this out anytime soon, but we are going to prioritize here. Build all 3, and then we need an output storage for it too. This will be good to get going. In fact, I think we're just going to put it, can we bring it all the way up? Put it right behind the pipeline, I guess. About that. Quick and easy for trucks to get to. Not that big a deal here. 96 to 12. Not an incredible ratio, huh? But we don't need a ton of salt for our glass mix. It only takes like, what, like 6? Let me know if this is empty. It will be right away, of course, but that's okay. There's our first salt. Lovely. So that's going. What other sort of odds and ends did we want to take care of here? I think I saw, yeah, there's a couple rogue pipes here that are ones when they could be 2s, or are ones when they are, 2s later. just glancing quickly, I think that was the last of them. I did catch a couple in the last stream. So, okay, great. We're going to call that good enough for now. And let's see, what else do we want to do? Oh, okay, great. So this looks sweet as hell, but is incredibly wasteful. This is us just burning predominantly light oil because this is full. And that's, you know, kind of a bummer. We could prioritize it over coal here, not only finding a use for it, but a use that slows down our consumption of coal. And as you can see from the exposed coal here, this is another one that we have made a decent chunk out of our existing supply. So slowing that down would be a pretty happy byproduct. We can do that relatively straightforwardly. Because we gave ourselves, actually I want this the other way, don't I? Yeah. We gave ourselves a steam input prioritizer, right? So what we'll do is we'll say light oil. We want to run heavy as well. I suppose we could set up the storage at least for it. We'll say light oil. Runs around here. Prioritize light. We will... here's a question then. Yeah, easy enough. So we will simply run this pipe here. It should be equal priority out, right? Whatever needs water should get it. That's okay. This input is the priority. That matters. That's the recycled water. But this happens agnostic to whether or not the source of steam is gas or coal. And then we'll need pipe out as well. Yeah, that's nice and tidy. Here, we definitely want to prioritize when we have it. And then we'll also need, of course, a little smokestack. And I think we're going to put a priority balancer here because there's a world where we would want to burn heavy oil as well, or instead. So let's do this, let's do this, let's certainly balance there, and here. And I think we can simply build all of it. I'm actually going to change this. I don't want this to be a pull necessarily. This is like, if you think about when do we want this to be running this? We want it when there's no better need, right? And so rather than forcing this to stay as full as possible, what we might do instead is a push method. And so if there's a valid way to send this somewhere else in the base, trucks will do that up to this amount. So this will keep this from being full, or anytime it gets nearly full, we'll send it across town. We'll do the same thing over here. Hopefully that should at least drastically reduce, if not totally cut off, our flaring, as well as slowing our coal consumption. So we'll take that. Low steel. Yeah, okay, so we have upgraded and been absolutely cranking on our construction parts for that massive refinery build. And we're nearly fully recharged, so this was about to back up anyway, but we have actually like kind of taxed our production over here, which is pretty wild, honestly. Pretty wild. I think maybe just to catch up, why don't we boost half? I don't want to totally tank our Unity, but we should just do that at least. Glass making is getting closer. Let's see, do we have any other odds and ends we should be thinking about? I do think I know I just said that we want to slow down consumption over here. I do think I am ready to upgrade the second construction parts 3 producer here. Oh, that's an assembly too. Yeah, we didn't upgrade that, did we? That's all right. That's what that's for. Reconnected. I'll have to do that for these as well, but not for right now. All right, so that will be good though to get built. Not because I think it's going to run constantly, but because we have what we need for it. So why don't we let when we need to, our ability to surge run a little bit faster. I also feel like I left, yeah, so I don't want this iron recipe here anymore. For you, we are purely on steel now, but no one else has any excess recipes. Great, cool. All right, that's good. The other thing we could do we have the people for it? We do. Let's send our recently upgraded, and in fact, now battle score 190 on account of the guns and armor that we've upgraded Bertha with. Let's send her out here and get revenge on some of these little scout ships. Let's go. More importantly, that will allow us to continue exploring, right? We've been hard stopped for a few episodes now by these battles, and 100, 170, 170, 70, 970, 100, 170. We can take, at least according to the battle score, each of these fights, which is pretty sweet. So we should do that. This is getting in my way. I'm going to clear it out. I have been toying with the idea of officially decommissioning our iron production. We have the quick trade, right, ability to go steel to iron in a very efficient way, because this requires 80 iron ore to make, and this requires 100 iron ore to make. This is like objectively a better iron ore trade at this point, so why would we do any of our own production? I think it's a little bit about volume still. So these fights are going to cause us to take some damage, which we will have to repair, and I'm pretty sure that that is iron. So let's see how much we run through iron for that purpose, because if we have to quick trade a lot, then the price does go up. So if we can handle that, I think we'll just decommission this and move on. If we can't, we'll let it go for a little bit longer. Looks like it's time for more housing as well. And, yeah, the other thing that we totally punted on, right, was maintenance. And we solved it by unity boosting our R2. But we could simply upgrade this, and that will double our production rate without costing unity. It'll cost, what, probably a couple more workers, a little bit more power, but I think we can handle that. Maintenance 2 is also, maintenance, depot 2 rather, is the first one. Can we do, no, I guess not. Never mind, I got excited. I thought we could start to talk about recyclables, but I think not quite yet. But we have glassmaking. I just saw it pop up there, right? There it is. Okay. So let's sketch this out. Oh, no, let's look at the first battle. We got hit points advantage. We have 2 guns. They have 1 gun, and our guns have marginally more range too, which means we're getting shots off to start the battle. Yeah, many more than they do. All right. We have won. We have won our first battle, and by doing so, we're back to getting some loot when we explore. Isn't this nice? Remember this? We have also picked up wheat seeds, which is super helpful because all the way back here now, we had been hard stopped to research any of the additional farm types as well as organic fertilizer, which will now add to the queue, because we had not found those wheat seeds out on the world map, but now we have. Good stuff. All right, we were making glass though. Let's make glass. So let's, as usual, start by sketching out to the side. This is our core building, right? This is molten glass in, glass out. This is the thing that we are trying to produce. You'll also see that it, breaks half of it? So that's a little silly, right? That's not super efficient, especially for a building that costs us 50 construction parts 3. See why I have added that, the second assembler in that module. But we can work with this, because if we bring up the blast furnace, the thing that makes the molten glass, you'll see that it has a recipe, and in fact, a more efficient recipe even, from a coal perspective, and a not making slag or as much exhaust perspective, for broken glass. Broken glass is the same as iron scrap, as copper scrap. It is simply recyclable input. So we're gonna kind of have to just run this back in a loop. And that's fine. It means we won't consume as much of the other input, which is this, again, glass mix, but 24 out, 24 out. So basically, this is the module. I would say, let's, of course, build a little bit more to start than just one row. But this probably works. Something like that. Okay, so where are we going to do this? I think the glass mix is an important bit of context here. This mixer can make glass mix more efficiently if it has access to acid, efficiently from a sand and limestone input perspective, but that's it. But it can make, for the same 60 output no matter what, enough to be fully servicing both of these blast furnaces. So this is a 1-to-2 ratio in our ratio terminology. Okay, so this means we need, or at least benefit from, optional access to acid. Where else have we talked about acid in the past? Well, we're currently researching copper refinement 2, which takes acid and increases our efficiency in copper. So remember here, we have 1-to-1, well, not quite with copper ore, but with recyclables. 24, no loss here, this splits out into 2. But when we get to this last stage, we add our water, and we lose 4.5 of our 24 impure copper. If we supply acid instead of water, we no longer lose that. And so that takes us from 19.5 to 24 without really changing anything else here. And that plus 4.5 out of 20 is, roughly a 20% boost to our productivity, which we'll take because we seem to be a little bit low. So that's great. And we'll build acid here as a result. So what if, since we also benefit from acid, we built our glass in this area? That could make some sense, right? Then we only have to build one acid production, and we can prioritize accordingly. Okay, so let's do that then. I had previously been reserving this space for like a mirrored copy of this copper over here, but I think this makes more sense. We are going to give ourselves a nice little boost with this refinement recipe soon. And if I look a little bit further ahead, we're in an episode or two about to be hard stopped on research again, as we were a few episodes ago back here. Really flew through this, didn't we? But right on the other side of it is this advanced smelting. These are research or upgrade in place, technology for our current blast furnaces, and it basically doubles output. What I'm saying is we'll be able to double all of this in the same footprint in relatively short order. So I think we're going to be okay there. Our ship is back, and it took repairs. Not much, it seems, which is good. I meant to get eyes on that and see exactly how much, but I didn't. Oh, look at this. So one of the things we found, beautiful, is another settlement. So this settlement allows us to trade 600 construction parts to for another cargo ship. We found the one on the map. This is another one we can repair for much less than that, by the way. But this, I think, will continuously allow us to purchase cargo ships for construction parts, which is nice. Cool. So we'll take that. Not right now, but it's a good thing to know that we have access to. Let's come over here then and delete these vehicle parts, or this vehicle depot. These are not expensive anymore, right? 40 construction parts one is nothing to us. So I don't mind moving these around. This one's also probably not long for this world in its specific placement. We're going to get a larger vehicle 2 setup going in relatively short order anyway, so. Let's think about this then. We want the acid production first, because that's what's going to take up space here. So let's talk about how we make that. Oopsie, lost it. Come on back. Okay. So acid is just sulfur plus water. Easy, right? We just have to bring in whatever excess sulfur we have, stir in some of the water we are already supplying over here, and we spit out acid. So that's nice and simple. And in fact, I think, we could basically just do it right here, right? I think also, I doubt we ever get super high volumes of this need, or frankly this supply. But there's a mixer 2 we can upgrade to. So I don't know that we necessarily need to be thinking about like, we need space for more, but it's never a bad idea, I suppose, to be thoughtful about that. Let's put this here, then, I guess. Does that make sense? Trucks should be able to come in like this. That's the point. Connect here. Connect here. And then this is the interesting part, right? Over here, we're going to want acid to go to our copper when we have acid. But we don't want acid to be a bottleneck, right? We desperately need a lot of copper to be going into our base. And so if that slows us down, that's bad. The whole point of this was to increase the efficiency. So we need water as a backup. Fortunately, that's actually a pretty simple thing to do. We just, as always, put in a nice little balancer. Priority. So we'll do this quickly because we are currently jamming things up. But there we go. So then we would do something like this. And say priority in for acid, water is backup. And it'll all go through the same pipes. Now, if there's acid in a pipe section, it won't take water. If there's water in a section, it won't take acid, but it should all flow through eventually. So it's okay that they share the same pipe. That's not a problem. The other thing we need then is for that acid to be consumed for glass mix, right? So we actually need a balancer over here too, don't we? I think we do. So let's take that out a little bit and say acid comes in and we prioritize it however we see fit, but for now, what we're talking about is sand mix. In fact, I actually think do something like this. We'll see. We're going to move these things around. Point is to illustrate the priority first. Something like that. Battle. Ooh, 1v2. But we got the jump on them. Focusing down one. And I think we still have enough of a lead over the second one. So we took a little bit more damage on this one. Cost us a little bit more iron to repair, I'm sure, but we're getting more stuff along the way. And look at that. It's not just oil you can find out here. You can find other resources like coal, which may be helpful after we burn through all of this and all of this. And it happens faster than you might think. There's some more over there. It's a bit of a hike. That is a good thing to have discovered. I am pleased about that. We are kind of wasting veggies over here. Why don't we upgrade these storages real quick? Same will be true with taters in a second. This is the fertilizer effect, right? We're probably going to jam these up too, but why not increase our buffers? This is what happens. We go from constantly getting alerts about these being empty to constantly alerts about not being able to store everything. Fertilizer is fantastic. Back here, we need 3 storages, right? We need limestone. We need sand. And we need salt, now that we're making that. These 3 things mix in here, optionally along with acid. Okay, great. What else do we need over here, storage-wise? Well, we'll need that glass mix, right? We'll also need recycled broken glass. And either case, source-wise, we'll need coal. Okay. Oh, and, you know, output. These are the pieces. These are the priorities. We'll prioritize broken glass over glass mix, but we've already talked about that. Literally every other smelting facility we've made. So I think it's probably time for me to do a short time lapse, getting the rest of this placed. So I will see you on the other side. Alrighty then, welcome back. This is where we ended up. So, I doubled up. Since we've been doing 4 machines of everything every time we make one of these, I figured why not? I think this is probably going to be like a pretty significant overbuild for what we actually need glass-wise. It'll be a very long time, if ever, that we until we actually build all of it. But why not? We're here, right? Make it easier on ourselves in the future. Okay, so how does it work? Well, working backwards, this is glass. This is where we put out our final product to the same road at the same depth as all of our other sort of finished goods, manufacturing supplies type of stuff. Our trucks can go up and down this road with everything that that we put out here. It's an input elsewhere. So that alignment still matches. And for each of these, right, we said that there is recycling output that has to go back. That's what this is. They all merge up here and run back here and go back into this same balancer. So this is an interesting question, but I think ultimately fine. We have equally, because we can't do priority 1, 2, 3, we can only do priority or not in a binary 0 or 1 sense into the same balancer. We have equally prioritized returning recycling glass and recycling glass from the rest of the base. Now, that should be okay. That should be okay, because we would be worried about things getting jammed up, right? If we can't recycle everything. But because it's a 50% recycle ratio, right? This is only going to ever be able to capably supply half or less even of what we actually make here. Well, even if we're at 50-50, right? Input from here and return, we should always need more of this input than we get back from this input. So that should be okay, but it's nuance worth considering. It's not always okay in such a situation. Sometimes you do need sequential prioritization, much like we had at the refinery, say here, right? You have to go priority out here and then priority splits out here. You know, there's, I think, probably a couple other places. Yeah, we did that over here in our early game finished goods factory, right? You got to do 2 sets. I think we can get away with just 1 here. Okay. That prioritizes that recycled glass from either within the factory or without the factory over our glass mix. But glass mix is made over here. And so because we went to 4 machines, we had to do 2 mixers, right? Each of these does 60, so they can supply each of these 1. And so these mixers require sand, limestone, salt, optionally take in acid. As we said, we make acid over here. This will make 36 acid. This will take 24 at most. And each of these will, where did it go? Or I guess actually it's already in here now. Each of these will take 6 at most, so 24 at most. You know, so this is technically, right, we need, our theoretical max consumption is 48. That's not going to be our bottleneck. If it is, that's what boosting is for. Double it up to 72. But it's not going to be our bottleneck. Our bottleneck is going to be sulfur supply. This takes 6 to make this amount. It would be 8 to make the full max 48. We are making 9 over here, sending a lot of it, 3, right, to rubber pretty much continuously. A pretty good chunk of it over here, another 6, right, to fertilizer. We don't have enough sulfur, so it's not really going to be a throughput issue over here, and to make more of this would have made the whole thing wider and more cumbersome, so I've decided that's all we're going to do for now. Okay, so how do we prioritize that that limited acid supply? How do we make sure that we have a backup using a less efficient recipe anyways? If we don't have it, well, so here we can decide if we want to prioritize copper or glass, glass mix. I think most of the time, maybe even always, but we'll find out. We can always change it. We're going to prioritize the acid to copper. I think just, you know, plus 20% to our copper production is going to be more important to us, certainly is today, than, you know, a much more relatively expensive, by the way, you know, boost to sand and limestone cost avoidance, right? It doesn't make anything more efficient. It just means that we don't have to spend as much sand and limestone, which are, you know, things we have massive deposits of. So it seems highly likely that we will continuously prioritize copper, but when there is overflow, why not use it over here? That acid supply requires sulfur to come in, as we said. It also requires water, which it's going to get from this fluid storage, which is still being delivered by truck, by the way. Might as well increase that since we're going to be increasing our supply. This water is also, as we mentioned, prioritized less than the acid input, but still absolutely there as a backup. Over here, if we don't have acid, we just keep going. You know, we don't need to like run water in as a replacement. Okay. So sand glass mix over here, and then coal in is our last input, regardless of which sort of the material input is. And then we have to do a slag export. By the way, this is like our only slag consumption on the island. So you could do this, but I think we're gonna ask it to stay empty anyway. It's just a nice short trip, and this may change in the future. So I think that's okay. Ooh, all right. That's our glass build. Let's unpause and get it going, I guess, right? So I think we can safely unpause, as always. All inputs, all outputs, the first row of machines. Oh yeah, we have a single consolidated smokestack here, but we don't need to turn its pipe on until we get the second one of these on. I really don't even think we should justify building 2 right away, to be honest with you. We'll see. You know, maybe that'll ramp up when we get through vehicle parts production, but until then, I'm not going to be particularly concerned about it. This will also increase our sand consumption, right? So we should probably go over and take a look at that mine. We have really not consumed hardly any sand at all this game so far, but, you know, naturally that is about to change. So let's go see if what we already have is capable of supplying it, and if not, you know, what we might do about that. We will probably, if I had to guess, need to do some reinforcing at some point. So we've got a ton out here. I think we might as well increase our storage. Oh no, that's right. We don't want to do that because this is actually our sand now. This is our old setup. Okay, great. So, all right, cool. So we have plenty out here that may or may not, you know, evolve, but we are okay in the short term. The other one I want to keep an eye on is, I feel like, yeah, okay. So we've been grabbing limestone for a lot of little things here and there, right? We chewed through a ton of it, actually. We had this sort of construction parts blitz recently. And we've been slapping down like a little bit of limestone over here we need to fill up, and we just put another one over here, right? So I'm a little bit worried about our production over here because we still just have this single excavator and his 2 truck pals. So I think we probably do need to grab one excavator off of our mine control tower over here for terraforming, and a pair of trucks. And let's do that. So he's focused on limestone, right? Yes, okay. And then the other guy making his way downtown now also needs to be focused. This is going great though. The space is really clearing out. Good. Okay. Low on copper. Yeah, I know. We are tearing through it. We might need to... Ooh, do we need to boost? Seems we do over here, right? I mean, steel is so much more expensive to boost. There are so many more buildings in here. These little smokestacks and everything that need boosted, but... Oh, you know what? Our ore isn't even really keeping up anyway, so... Alright, we're gonna stop boosting that. We are going to maybe start boosting that. At a certain point, I probably want to consolidate the smokestacks over here too, because I really don't want to have to spend Unity boosting a smokestack, you know what I mean? Like, it's so silly. But... No, actually, we don't need to. Never mind. These ones do not actually boost their exhaust over the top, so that's good. But now... because we boost... Yep. That means that the draw here is too much for a 60 belt, right? In fact, it's too much. It was too much already for a 60 belt. Is that right? My goodness. Yeah, we've been kind of wasting capacity there. Is that true? When we have all 4 of these built, they need 120 a minute. And we are just now only able to provide 120 a minute. So this boost isn't even worth anything yet. Right? Like, we need this whole line to be 120. Okay. Let's do it like this then. Needs to be 120 up to there if we ever want to get value from boosting, but in order to do that, we will also need this. And also priority there? No, not priority there. Still priority to recycling. Okay. Yeah, interesting. We did not build this in mind with throughput for boosting. Well, now I'm wondering if that's part of the problem over here too. I know we did some work on this end. Yeah, all right, well, no. The problem here is iron ore supply. So do we need to perhaps also, let's say, pull 2 more off the terraforming crew? It's a great surge, but don't think we need that pace as much anymore. Certainly not as much as we need mining. Looks like it's you and you. Okay. So hopefully that's helpful, but we're okay on copper ore still, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe. Now that we're actually able to supply it at full speed, we might not be. We'll find out. Okay. We are also, of course, going to need sand mix. So let's get all of that built. Not all of that. I guess we don't need that one, right? Everything else there. Including you and you. And then this needs to be full. This needs to be full. And this needs to be full. Cool. So, as you can see, right, we've been orienting so that our finished good output type things are on this avenue. We've also been orienting so that our sort of raw material or inputs are here. So as we start to think about the train network, right, I think we're probably going to have a lot of drop-offs along here for raw material inputs, right? Less so like trains running up and down the avenue, although we might, just as a way that they're going to have to go throughout the base. But as far as where the drop-offs are going to be, this is a huge row for it. We'll have to figure out how we're going to get back in here as well. But that's going to be, I think, a big piece. We're definitely going to have a refinery station. And of course, pickup stations out here. Pickup as in the trains will pick up the ore, not pick up as in a pickup truck. But that's where we're heading. What's up with this? You're full on rock. Not what you want. I can't believe we never actually built this. Just assumed we had. For whatever reason, it is... Oh, no, that does not to be a 2. That was the last thing that was on my palette. Alright, for whatever reason, trucks are way better at clearing this out than this. So that's good. And hopefully now fella number 2 is helping us catch up a little bit on limestone. And we're looking good. Ship back out. Ship is too damaged. Why are you too damaged? Ah, see, there it is. But why are you not just taking... I guess our trucks are too busy to bring it? Yeah, okay, that's fine. This is low priority. Okay. Great. Well, this is coming along. Why are we not getting enough 2s? Because we're not getting enough steel to make 1s. Really, steel? Why you gotta be like that? Alright, it is coming in though. You're working. You're working. Alright, this is why recycling is going to be really important. It is basically going to be ore cost avoidance, right? Because you generate more scrap, which means that you don't have to spend as much throughput and transit bringing your ore over here. And that's true everywhere, basically, that we make stuff. How are we? Can I make... We need another loan, don't we? Yeah, there we go. Give me... Oh my gosh, yeah. Give me 1,300. Let's go. That should fix all of this. And also, probably... We can at least consolidate our debt here, right? Pay that down. Pay that down. Okay. Our reputation keeps going up. This is great. We're going to keep doing that. We are going to keep doing that. Oh, I don't need an alert on this one. I copied him from over here. We want to know if he's ever low. We'll upgrade that storage. Okay. That does speed this all along. Good, good. Oh, come on. Right. Glass mix will not need anything dropped off. You will. I'm gonna get this up to 7, at least, I guess. Oh, right. Actually, I think here we have to do the same thing that we did with light oil. I think we have to push this out, right? Rather than trying to pull it all over here, because otherwise our trucks are going to come grab this, and that is not what we want, because we want rubber to still be being produced. And speaking of things that are still happening, interesting. Why are we not sending... I guess this is too low priority. Yeah, there we go. Our truck network is taxed. It is taxed. Another reason we need trains up and running, another reason we need large vehicles. So we're going to get some pretty solid upgrades on that front here soon. But as we mentioned at the top, it takes glass. So that said, everything's arriving. You getting what you need? What do you not have? Limestone. That's here. Of course, missing a lift. So that'll be limestone, and then you are getting everything else then. All right, great. So that should be, let's just boost it so we can see it in action here. That should be glass mix. More housing. Every time with the housing. But this should be glass mix, and glass mix now coming through. That was coal. Should open 7 as well. I thought I did I not just do these? I swear I just did these. Oh, and no delivering slag here, are you kidding me? Because this hasn't been active yet. This slag has to have been someone dumped here. Don't do that. Alright, for real, why is the coal not coming? How are we over here on coal? I need to reinforce this one too, huh? I think so. Get up to 6. Sad. Our hero terraforming crew is being dispersed out into the world. They certainly did their job, and they'll continue chipping away here, but this is so much less pressing than it was, huh? Meanwhile, checking on the refinery, we have so much oil available to pick up. We are still, however, pulling off of this load. You're so good on diesel. Are we making enough forever then? I mean, I guess we are. Okay. Oh, well, you know what we didn't do here? Oh my gosh. That's bad. Was actually create a storage for it. So yeah, no wonder we're not consuming a ton. It's because we didn't exactly connect the outputs. Oops. So we'll quickly build that, and then go back and blueprint that and that for the future as well. Oh, wrong one. That's the one we actually want. Okay. Trees seem full. Copper is filling back up. Yeah, that was, I guess we've been running this facility at basically half throughput because of those belt issues. I think we no longer need to be boosting that. It's pretty funny. I mean, it's very silly, self-imposed. It is pretty funny too. You're still not getting coal. Why is this not? It's still just a truck network issue, right? Because, yeah, I mean, we're making coal. It's just that the second it comes out, it's earmarked. So I kind of feel like we need to add even another one. Man. Okay, so be it. Down to 5. Up to 7. My goodness. You pretty clearly are not focused on coal, are you? Right. Harvesters. Okay, that's good. Gonna have them, I think, clear out. Okay, so I'm thinking now about train travel. Basically, this is going to be a route. So I think that and call it that all need to go in relatively short order. You repaired? You're still not because... Wow, our trucks are really taxed right now. Nobody's idle for more than like a quarter second. Oh, it's dumping. I mean, I guess that's the terraforming crew, right? But it's also clearing out of mines as well. That'll be something we probably want to do a collection train for as well. So, and you're all full now, so that's good. Wonder why that was such an issue for a moment. I guess maybe we'll... Oh, it's an issue because we're not getting coal, are we? Yeah. All right. This has to improve. It's causing serious problems for our base right now. I might even say I'm tired of dripping a solution. It is time to hit this with a hammer. All right, but our ship was repaired there. Let's go do another one. Okay. But hey, maintenance is fixed. Our refinery is running well. You can see we are, in fact, done flaring. That's just exhaust. We're done flaring, it seems, as long as our trucks can keep up with it, which means that this is running. Oh, but wait. Not priority to coal. This is... The whole point was that we run this instead of coal. Come on now. Okay. Good. That is a big deal, though. That will really help slow down coal. Battle. We've seen this before. Oh, I actually kind of want our iron scrap to go over here now. We're still getting a little bit, right, when the... exactly here, when we explore a new area. But we will soon do recycling. So the other thing I will do is... I don't think we can justify building it yet, but... There it is. Waste collection, or waste sorting plant. This bad boy is what we're going to do to take the inputs from, or the outputs, right? These recyclables outputs from here, and I thought from this as well. Maybe it's only recycling too, or there it is. Okay, there it is. And in fact, right, we want to prioritize that. So we do not have it yet, but when we can justify building this enormously expensive building, Okay, we can do it. Suddenly I've changed my mind. It is decided. We are going to collect these recyclables and send them around like this. Oh man. Wow, okay. That's hugely helpful, actually. I did not really think we had that in us right now. That's great. So, this will sort through all of these, and it's going to give us scrap, right, for each of these based on what went into the building. So because lab equipment, right, made over here is made out of mechanical parts and electronics, we're going to get some iron scrap and some copper scrap as a result. You can see that that is exactly what's breaking apart here. And so when they come out this way, we'll build a little sorty thing where we filter out, each of the different types, and then we can run those around to each of the different facilities as well. So cool. We'll expand on that next time, but I think we feel good about glass, which is piling up here. Good, good, good. And we're back fine on copper. Steel is still not quite getting the coal he needs. How's this going? Are we finally generating enough coal? You also look like you're not focused. These all should be good. And that is trains unlocked. Look at all of this. Okay. I think that's our cue to call it an episode. Certainly, there's more we can be doing continuously. That's how this game goes. But glass is up and running. We no longer have any impediments to building ourselves a train in the next episode. And wow, the timing's great there because our trucks are just not cutting it. They're not cutting it. So this is really nicely timed. Looking forward to that massive upgrade to our transportation network. Plus, it's trains. Isn't that going to be fun? I'm excited. Okay. Well, as always, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.